So Bill Cosby is released from prison after conviction is vacated. And so I'm sure a lot of people have seen this. It's all over the news, all over the internet, all over Twitter. Um, and I thought I was going to do something a little different here. I know most people probably have already heard of the details of how this thing occurred, but this article right here is out of ABC News. So Bill Cosby was released from prison Wednesday after his conviction on sexual assault charges was overturned by Pennsylvania highest court. So the 83-year-old Cosby walked out of the state correctional institution of Phoenix in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, Wednesday afternoon, officials have told ABC News. Cosby's publicist, Andrew Wyatt, told ABC News earlier Wednesday that he was going to pick Cosby up at the prison. And so you will see um, in some of the news on television, they had an aerial footage of him going into his house, and a lot of news people were around, and they were actually getting like a small interview from him. But I believe the people that were around him, escorting him to his house, they were doing most of the talking. And so it says the aerial footage from the Philadelphia ABC station WPVI showed Cosby getting out of the car at the Elkins Park, Pennsylvania mansion, wearing a maroon T-shirt and baggy trousers, and he flashed a peace sign as the people helped him walk into his house. And so Cosby later emerged from his house and walked to the end of the driveway where he stood with Wyatt and his lawyers as they addressed the media. And so that's what I saw. It was on the news. And so most people probably have seen that. If they hadn't, they probably will see it, because I think this right here is sort of like trending in the news right now. So Cosby smiled at the reporters as they asked him to respond to no longer being incarcerated, but he declined to speak. So I didn't really see him doing the speaking. It was other people around him that were doing most of the talking. So what we saw today was justice, justice for all Americans, Wyatt has said. And so the actor released a statement on Twitter writing that I have never changed my stance or my story. So I have always maintained my innocence. So thank you to all my fans, supporters, and friends who stood by me through this ordeal. Special thanks to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court for upholding the rule of law. And so that's his comment. And so here's a photo. It's a still photo of course, Bill Cosby in the middle, and I believe Wyatt is Andrew Wyatt, um, a spokesman um, that is standing. It would be to my right, or maybe to your right. And then you have Jennifer Bongine, who is on the left. And so he has been released officially, and he can't be tried again for a criminal offense on the same case. So that is done. So one of Cosby's appellate attorneys, Jennifer Bongine, said that she and the rest of the Cosby legal team were thrilled to have him home. So he served 3 years of an unjust sentence. So he actually served 3 years. And so I believe it was a 3 to 10 year sentence. So he served the 3 years. And to my knowledge, he was a mentor to the other inmates, and he had good behavior in terms of his demeanor, and he didn't let the time do him, is what she explained. So he did it with dignity, principle, and he was a mentor to the inmates. And Bonjean said, so he was really, as you say, doing the time, and the time was not doing him, is what she phrased it. So she also thanked the Supreme Court for demonstrating that they were impervious to the court of the public opinion, which frankly the lower court was not. And so Cosby was sentenced, this was in 2018, to a 3 to 10 year sentence in the state prison, allegedly for drugging and sexually assaulting who was known as the Temple University employee Andrea Constant in 2004. So Cosby served about 3 years of that sentence. So today, a majority decision regarding Bill Cosby is not only disappointing, but of concern in that it may discourage those who seek justice for sexual assault in criminal justice systems from reporting or participating in a prosecution of the assailant, or it may force a victim to choose between filing either a criminal or a civil action. So this is from Constance and her lawyers that has stated this. And so this is one of the lawyers. His name is Bruce Castor, representing the defending former President Donald Trump, addresses the U.S. state as it begins the second impeachment trial on the charges of inciting a deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol February 9, 2021. So we know that was on January 6th is when it took place. But um, well, actually, they said deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol, February 9, 2021, in Washington, D.C. So this is when they were on trial. And so last year, Pennsylvania Supreme Court agreed to hear 2 points in Cosby's appeal to overturn the 2018 sexual assault conviction. So in a ruling released on Wednesday, the state Supreme Court concluded that Cosby's prosecution should never have even occurred due to the deal that the comedian cut with the former Montgomery Court prosecutor Bruce Castor, who you see right here. And so there was a deal that was cut with that prosecutor who agreed to not criminally prosecute Cosby if he gave a deposition in the civil case brought against him by Constance. So he basically, from what I heard, it that he wasn't treated fair. And so during the deposition, Cosby made incriminating statements that Castor's successor, Kevin R. Steele, used to charge Cosby in 2015. So Constance said in her statement that the decision to overturn the conviction resulted from a procedural technicality. And so Castor is the same lawyer who went to represent Donald Trump during the ex-president's second impeachment trial earlier in the year. And so this is a still photo of the aerial view of Bill Cosby where he's being assisted with, I believe, some members of his legal team and the spokesman Andrew Wyatt, and so they basically were escorting him into his home. So the discretion vested in our Commonwealth's prosecutor, however vast, does not mean that it exercises its free of constraints of due process. So the Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices wrote in their 79-page decision. And so when the unconditional charging decision is made publicly and with the intent to induce action and reliance by a defendant, when the defendant does so, is his deterrent or at his detriment, and in some instances, upon the advice of counsel, denying the defendant the benefit of the decision in an affront is an affront of fundamental fairness. And so that's the part that I was hearing that basically they got him to cut a deal, and he confessed to something which he didn't exercise his Fifth Amendment rights, and so he's sort of the bait and switch, and he explains it down here. Tactic was used on him, and so by default, he was able to be released because it's more not Cosby's fault, it's more the prosecutor's fault because they screwed up in the sense of that, and so they didn't do this thing in a fair way is what they came to. So denying the defendant of the benefit of the decision is an affront to his fundamental fairness. Okay, so particularly when it results in criminal prosecution that was foregone for more than a decade, and so he wasn't even supposed to be prosecuted. So the justices wrote, so the decision went on to say that Cosby was a victim of unconstitutional coercive bait and switch. And so believing that he had immunity from criminal prosecution, Cosby testified during 4 days of the depositions by Constand's attorneys, and the civil lawsuit was settled for more than about 3 million. This was in 2006, so she already did a civil lawsuit, and so she got 3 million. So that's basically what it states here. And so she already pursued the civil side of it, but I believe she can still do it again. Um, and it doesn't leave him uh, what you would say shielded from that. But he can't be tried again. I will say this: he cannot be tried again for the same thing in criminal courts. So that is done. He cannot be tried again for that. And so and then he already served the 3 years of the 10-year sentence, a 3 to 10 year sentence, and so that's a done deal. So as a practical matter, the moment that Cosby was charged criminally, he was harmed, and so all he had forfeited earlier, and the consequences of the forfeiture in the civil case were for naught. The justice wrote. So Cosby cannot be retried. Like I said, he cannot be retried on the criminal charges. And so, and how come I can say some of the things before I didn't even read this article, but I kind of listened to what they said into. I had a friend that was a lawyer, so I kind of know about some of this stuff. But he was found guilty by a jury and now goes free on procedural issues that is irrelevant to the facts of the crime. Still said in a statement on Wednesday afternoon. So still commended Constance for the bravery in coming forward. So it doesn't mean that he's free because he's innocent. Is he's free because of a technicality or procedural issues, as they said, that the prosecutor didn't follow through with the original deal that they had cut. And the way they did this by coercing him to admit to the wrongdoing, and even though he went and said, and I know people heard this, that he said that he would do the 10 years and he did not want to say that he had admitted to doing this, but he did admit to doing it, and he, in effort that he would not have to do any time and not be prosecuted. And so he went ahead and admitted to what he had did, his wrongdoing. So it doesn't clear him of the wrongdoing. And then when you look at this whole situation, the man, he lost a star in Hollywood. He was way up there. He was at the top of his game. And, he I mean, he almost had his own TV network. I believe he got that high up. And so he, too, you got to look at the situation by him being a black man and being as powerful in the Hollywood eye light as he once was. It, you know, whether he, I'm looking at it from this point, if he was guilty, if he wasn't guilty, either way, I feel like racially, he was going to be going down in flames because of being pursued for this issue, on either end, whether being guilty or not guilty, you know. And I'm just saying it from that standpoint of view because it seems as though when it's somebody of this background, as he was, that they were going to really like just keep dragging this thing on and on and on and on, whether he did or not. And I'm not going to say too much about it, except that the prosecutor is the one that people should be upset with. If they're going to be upset, it wouldn't be so much with Bill Cosby on this particular incident that had occurred in terms of him getting out. Um, so it's the fault of them, and we know in the past that there has been cases where people have been incriminated and coerced to say that they're guilty when they haven't really been guilty. Now, I'm not saying this in terms of Bill Cosby's situation, but it's similar, But, you know, I believe that there were women that he did give this cocktail to. But then, however, I do believe that there were some women that were into they were private escorts, and they looked at him and his stature, and then when they saw some of these women come forward, There were a few in there that were looking for a payout. Now, that wasn't all of the women. There were some women that were legitimately they had a case, and they did come forward, and I can see what they're saying by it may make other women feel it's like a slap in the face. It makes other women feel like, oh, should we even come forward and say anything about this? And so I get that. The other part that I get too is that the prosecutors they made an error in how they did it. It's like, come on, you tried to set this man up. And even if he, let's say, even if he did do it, it's like, come on, you got to do these things the right way because this is what happens when you screw up. And so I think the anger should be more directed towards, I mean, he served some time. You know, this man is in his 80s. He's blind, like legally blind, and he's been stripped of all of his merits, most of them. And I don't care what anybody says, he's never going to go back to what he once was completely, you know, because I mean the damage has been really done, you know, in terms of the payment of, you know, he lost in the civil court case, and he actually he really was, you know, judging from his he basically incriminated himself when he had admitted to the fault and wrongdoing, when he had told this guy, yes, he did in fact do all of these things, and he admitted to it. But he said he was going to also do the 10 years because he didn't feel like he was obligated to, you know, have to, you know, feel that sense of remorse. So there's some mixed emotions. There's some people that are upset about the whole situation, and then they direct their anger towards Cosby. And then there's some people that are happy and overjoyed and elated. Now, some of these emotions are like misdirected anger, and they're not really looking at the situation for what it really stands for, what's going on, and all of the dynamics of this. There's several things going on, but he is out. He can't be tried again for the same offenses, and so I don't really think it's over either. Just for some reason, I feel like we should wait for it. There's gonna be something else to this, but I hope it says on the end here still commended Constance for her bravery in coming forward and remaining steadfast throughout the long ordeal, as well as all the other women who had shared their similar experiences. Because there were other women too, other than that one lady, Constance, that came forward about the ordeal that they had or encounter they had with Bill Cosby. So my hope is that the decision will not dampen the reporting of the sexual assault by victims. Still said, prosecutors in my office will continue to follow the evidence wherever and to whomever it leads. So we still believe that no one is above the law, including those who are rich and famous and powerful. And so, in an interview of KYW News Radio in Philadelphia, Castor has said that he was not surprised by the state Supreme Court's decision. So I can only ever recall it happening once by before in a case that the prosecutor's behavior was so egregious that the Supreme Court threw the case out and didn't remand for a new trial. So Castor told the radio station, so it is rare, but what happened to Mr. Cosby was really egregious, and what they did to him should never happen to any American citizen at the social strata. And so attorney Gloria Allred represented several women who testified at the Cosby trial to bolster the prosecution evidence of the prior bad acts against the entertainer and to prove the pattern of this practice. Okay, so this is a still photo of Constance. This is the woman who basically Bill Cosby's was the main accuser, Andrea Constance, that reacts to the lawyer Dolores. I believe it's Troani at the right and Delaney Henderson at the left, after a guilty verdict in the Bill Cosby trial at the Montgomery County Courthouse. And so that's what happened. This was April 26th of 2018 in Norristown, I believe, maybe Philadelphia. So despite the Pennsylvania actually, not Philadelphia, but in Pennsylvania, Supreme Court's decision. This was an important fight for justice, outlet told ABC News Live. And even though the court overturned the conviction on the technical grounds, it did not vindicate Bill Cosby's conduct and should not be interpreted as a statement or the finding that he did not engage in acts of which he has been accused. But some people will look at this situation and think that he was innocent completely. And then some people look at it based on the race. Oh, he's out and we're happy he's out. They were lying on him and all this. And they're not really reading all of what happened and how this was more the fault of an attorney's um, um, errors, and it wasn't so much that he was innocent and he was released. That's not how this case went. And so people who don't really look at what was going on, they just go and run with that. And then too, you have people who maybe they they're not even looking at all the whole thing and how the dynamics of this is. They just see somebody that they just wanted to just basically like blame him for everything, blame him for even getting out. I mean, in terms of this situation right here in current, like, he's not the reason that he got out. The prosecutors are. And so if you're going to be angry, it would be with more with them and how they didn't carry out this system correctly. And so Janice Baker Kinney, it says that she is one of the women who had testified at Cosby's criminal trial, alleging that he had sexually assaulted her. This was in 1982 when she was about 24 years old. She's a bartender in Reno, Nevada, and this is what she told the ABC News Live on Wednesday, that she was stunned by this news. So I'm wondering what all these other people are thinking, but some of them have started coming in forward and saying what their thoughts are. Celebrities have made reactions. Just regular random people have made their reactions. And then there was a guy earlier on the news. He was saying, "Oh, I grew up with him. I watched the Fat Albert Show and stuff." I did too. But that doesn't excuse the fact of what happened. So, I watched his shows. I grew up with Bill Cosby as Fat Albert, his shows, and when he did the voiceovers and all that, and his and Saturday night or Saturday, what is this, Uptown Saturday Night? I saw all of those shows too. So I was a '70s kid as well. So I grew up with all of that. So yeah, but that doesn't change the fact of what had happened. So it says, "I'm shocked to my stomach, kind of." In not over this. So Kenny says, so just one little legalese can overturn this when so many people came forward and so many women have told their truths. And so another accuser, Victoria Valentino, a former Playboy model who didn't testify at the trial but claimed Cosby had drugged and sexually assaulted her as well when she was a young woman, told ABC News that my stomach is lurching upon hearing Cosby would be released. Okay, so I am deeply distressed, and this is about the injustice of the whole thing, Valentino said. So he's a psychopath. He is a serial rapist. And so these are people who had encounters, so has allegedly had encounters with him that weren't good. So she said his release came just days after she and another Cosby accuser received a letter from the Pennsylvania officials advising them that Cosby's request for parole was denied. And so he did go up for parole and he tried to request for it, but they denied it. And so I remember seeing that, and this was just before his release. So Cosby, who has maintained an innocence, had his petition for an early parole denied in May after the corrections officials cited that his refusal to participate in the prison sex offender program is the reason why. And so, in an appeal of the conviction, Cosby's lawyer argued that the trial judge erred in allowing Cosby's prior deposition about using quaaludes during consensual sexual encounters with women in the 1970s. Okay, and so, of course, Andrew Wyatt said that he didn't do all this stuff like as if he was in the wrong room. So, people, are, they're into him because he was an icon in the black community, and it's just for everyone. And so, two lower courts, including a three-judge panel of Pennsylvania Superior Court jurists, had previously refused to overturn the comedian's conviction. So, despite the deluge of accusations against him, Cosby has maintained that he had never engaged in non-consensual sex. And so, that's pretty much the article. And so, I'll just go up. This is the still photos. This was him in September 24, 2018. Cosby, he arrived for his sentencing hearing. This was in Montgomery County Courthouse in Norristown, Pennsylvania. And so these are all the still photos of what had happened or what is and now to what is happening right now. So I'll leave it on this one. This was the aerial view that I saw, and actually this is just a still photo of it, but I actually saw how they spoke to him as well, and he didn't say anything. This is Castor. He is the his name is Bruce Castor. He's one of the attorneys, and then you have Bill Cosby with Andrew Wyatt at the right, his spokesman, and then you have Jennifer Bongine. So, what are your thoughts on this? I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm not gonna put too much of my emphasis on it because it's not about me. It's about what is the public's thought on this. I mean, do you think that he should have been that he should be released? That they should put him back? Or do you think that, there's a gross misjustice on the other end that they really spoofed up and they shouldn't have let him out? Or do you think that justice was served, they let him out and they shouldn't have never put him in there to begin with? And which that is what they said because of, you know, the legal terms of it. He wasn't coerced. But then again, he did admit to the guilt and then he turned around and said that he was innocent. And so, what's your thoughts on it? And so, I know there's a lot of passionate reactions. So, just try to keep it, as cool as possible. This is not about me. This is about what are your thoughts on the whole thing? Because some people believe that he's like what she said in the article. She said that he's a serial rapist, and so some people believe that he's still America's wholesome dad. So, and having said this, I'm gonna let this video go. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you. And I'm sure that we won't hear the end of this.